what we will do kasi I would like to sana address some issues regarding your quiz. Okay. But number one kasi may mga general observations ako with regards to how some of you submitted their work. Okay. Which uh, which I don't think complied with what I have prescribed. Okay? For example, maraming yung file name pa lang nung ipapasa. Okay? Medyo marami nang medyo marami nang sumablay. Okay? But I know where it was where it came from. Okay? And i-ano ko na lang siya, i-address ko na lang siya individually when I return your paper. So what will happen kasi is that the good thing about Teams is that I don't know kung naranasan niyo ito sa ibang courses niyo. Pero the good thing about Teams is that dahil kinonduct natin yung quiz natin in that manner, okay? I can make comments, okay? I can write feedbacks dun sa mismong pinasa niyong paper, okay? And then I can return it to you. Okay? And then together with the score. So basically, once your paper have been returned to you, okay, makikita niyo dun yung mga feedbacks ko. Okay, so I'll address it na lang individually. Once I return your paper, which ang target ko is this coming week. Okay, kasi ang target ko dapat bago kayo makapag-quiz number 2. Okay, which if I may if I can recall would happen kailan ang quiz to niyo? February 24. So that's 2 weeks from now. Or less than 2 weeks from now. Tama ba? More than 3 weeks pala. Less than 3 weeks from now. Okay, so yun. So ang target ko is before that date. I would be able to give you your papers back. Okay? So that you will make the necessary corrections. Okay? Pero tandaan niyo lang mag-a-apply ako ng mga konting deductions. Okay? Mag-a-apply ako ng mga konting deductions sa mga violations nyo. Okay? With regards sa format. Okay? Sa ngayon, konti pa lang. Siguro 1 point per violation. For example, kung mali yung file name, that's 1 point. Kung hindi niyo pinilafan yung header, that's another point of deduction. Kung hindi tama yung sizing ng mga images niyo, especially yung mga nagsulat at saka nag-scan or nagsulat, tapos hindi naka-crop, okay, hindi naka-size sa width ng paper yung yung scan image niyo, hindi naka-size dun sa which I specifically instructed you to do so. Okay? That's another point of point of deduction. Okay, so lalagyan natin siya ng minimal deduction. Okay. Bakit ko siya lalagyan ng minimal deduction? Para sa susunod, mapapwersa na kayo ngayon sana na i-correct siya. Okay? You would be forced to correct them. Okay? Kasi sa susunod, dodoblehin na natin yung deductions ng mga violations. Okay? Naintindihan ba 'yan? Now, I know some of you might be concerned or might be pressured into thinking na, sir, kasi mahirap mag-edit dahil nasa phone lang kami. Okay, naka-phone lang kami. Malamang 'yun ang number one concern niyo. Which if kung pwede, i-ano sa akin, i-concern niyo siya sa akin. Okay? Pero ito lang naman kasi yung pinopoint ko rin. when you were when we were having our orientation, the first thing that I have advised you to do is to study yung mga tools na gagamitin natin. So binanggit ko nga yung mga tools na yon. That includes Microsoft Word. Okay, whether you're using tawag ito, whether you're using PC or or it's a mobile phone. Okay, kung gumagamit kayo ng Microsoft Word dun sa either of the devices na yon. Okay. You should have been able to study how they can be used, okay, in order for you to write your reports, especially dun sa quiz. Okay. Pero again, hopefully, you don't take this in a negative way, okay? And you don't think that I'm trying to pressure you into working on these things, okay? At dumadagdag siya sa workload ninyo, okay? But here's the thing, if tama yung projections ko sa mga susunod na mga terms, okay, we'll be seeing each other after this term. We will be seeing each other almost every other term pagkatapos nito, okay? So medyo mahaba-haba yung pagkasamahan natin ng content, and I would be applying those same rules with some konting modifications kapag kami makikita tayong mga ways to, for example, make these things easier. Okay, so ito-tweak natin ng konti yung mga rules or yung mga guidelines. Pero more or less, I would like you to be proficient in using these tools. Yun lang naman yung yung objective ko. I would like you to be proficient in using these tools. And even if we shift into face-to-face classes, I would still be requiring you to work on or to present your reports in that manner. Okay? In the end, kapag kayo naging proficient sa mga tools na 'yan, okay, kayo rin naman ang makikinabang. Okay? Sa thesis ninyo, okay? Sa technopreneurship, marami kayong paggagamitan niyan. Yung skills na 'yan, those are soft skills which you would not be taught of. Hindi kayo tuturuan hindi kayo tuturuan diyan. Pero sabi ko nga sa inyo, yung mga tools na 'yan are actually self discovery tools. Kayo magdi-discover yan kung paano gumamit yan. So we may be strict in terms of those. Okay. Kaya pagbalik sa inyo ng paper niyo, ng quiz number 1 niyo, huwag kayong magugulat kung ang daming nakalagay doon with regards sa mga formatting. Okay. Ano ko sa inyo, maarte talaga ako sa format ng report. Okay. Dahil I would like you, number 1, I would like it to be readable kasi. Yun ang ko. Parang when I read your reports or when I read your work, I would like to find things kung saan ko siya ine-expect. Para mabilis ako makapag-evaluate, and number 2, makapagbigay ako ng tamang feedback. Okay, ganito lang naman 'yan eh. Pag hindi ko mabasa yung report nyo, wala akong choice kundi i-scorean nyo ng mababa. Kasi again I'm looking for evidences of your learning. If you have learned, okay, with kung ano yung inaaral natin, okay, I'm looking for evidences of those. Paano ako makakita ng evidence kung hindi ko mabasa yung report niyo? That's number 1. So, mahirap maghanap ng ebidensya kung to start with, wala akong mabasa sa report niyo. Okay. And number 2, ito pa isang general na kasi in-scan ko na yung mga reports niyo. Hindi kayo nagnanarrate ng solution niyo. Marami sa inyo hindi nagnanarrate ng solution niyo. Okay? Nandun pa rin kayo sa part that you don't really narrate. Okay? You don't hindi niyo kinukuwento kung ano yung ginagawa niyo. Ang ginagawa niyo lang, sinosolve niyo siya through equations. Again, as I am pointing out over and over again, okay, I am not privy to your mindset. I'm not privy to how are you thinking. Okay? Pero I am looking kasi into that. Gusto kong makita or gusto kong malaman kung ano yung perspective niyo. Okay? So, if hindi kayo magnanarrate ng hindi kayo magnanarrate ng solution niyo, Hindi ko alam kung saan nyo kinukuha yung mga, I mean, hindi ko alam kung ano yung alam nyo at hindi ko alam kung ano yung hindi nyo alam. Okay? Most especially, may mga methods kasi na tinuro sa inyo, okay, na ginagamit nyo until now. Okay? Which I may not be, privy to it. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung tinuro sa inyo. And meron akong tinuturo sa inyo na method. May certain methods akong tinuturo sa inyo. Pero hindi nyo naman, maaaring hindi nyo inadapt. Kasi you are used to doing certain things in a certain manner. Kasi doon kayo unang naturuan eh. Which is fine. Wala naman tayong problema doon. Okay? It's okay that you do your things your own. Okay? Kaya lang, I would like to dig down into your thinking. That is why nag-ano ako ng narration. Okay? I would like you to narrate your through writing lang naman, di naman to Pero I would like you to narrate through writing your thinking, your thought process. Okay, yun ang gusto kong makita sana. Okay? So, marami sa inyo ganun pa rin. Nandun pa rin tayo sa part that we are not trying to narrate anything about our solution. Makikita niyo yan pag nagtagbigay ako ng feedback. Okay? Maganda kasi doon is individual yung mangyayaring feedback. Okay? So, masasabi sa inyo kung saan kayo pwede pa mag-improve. Okay? So, sabi ko nga sa inyo, your quiz or your reports will not only seek the true or the correct answer. Hindi na naman tayo nandun sa tamang sagot eh. Okay? We are not after just getting the right answer. We are after also the thought process. Of course, iba yung nakuha nyo yung tamang sagot. Pero kung nakuha nyo yung tamang sagot or you have reported the right answer, but you did not expose me to the thought process behind that correct answer, mababa rin yung makukuha nyo kasi hindi siya wala siyang evidence. Okay? Hindi evident. Okay? Yung outcomes that we would like to assess doon sa mga sa quiz natin. But anyway, sabi ko nga yung feedback makukuha natin siya. Okay? So are we clear on that? I-set nyo lang yung expectation ninyo ha. Please do set your expectation that baka kasi sinabi nyo, baka nasa isip nyo, marami ako nakuha tamang sagot. Okay, so ini-expect ko mataas yung grade ko. I-temper nyo muna yung expectation niyo dahil number one, this is the first time na naging teacher nyo ako, so you don't know how I am checking papers. Okay, so baka merong thinking that alam ko marami ako nakuha tamang sagot. Pero sabi ko nga sa inyo, hindi lang tamang sagot ang titingnan ako personally. Hindi lang tamang sagot ang titingnan ko. Okay. I'm also trying to look for some other things. Okay. So, baka kahit na hindi niyo nakukuha yung tamang sagot, pero nakikita ko na nakikita ko yung thought process niyo papunta dun. Okay. Baka magulat pa kayo, mataas pa yung score niyo. Okay? So, yun yung natin. Yun yung expectation. Please do temporary expectation, most especially kung in-expect yung magiging mataas yung score natin. Okay? And then also expect kung hindi yung mga deductions, may mga deductions siya na paunti-unti. Okay? So, ayun. Number 1. Okay. So, number 2, second announcement is meron sana akong gustong balikang may gusto sana akong balikang topic. Okay. Sa Laplace. Pero this is with regards with circuits. Okay. Nakita niyo ba yung number 8 ng question niyo?
Opo, sir.
Sinong nag-attempt sumagot nun?
Hindi na rin po nakaabot dun, sir.
Hindi na kayo nakaabot dun. Okay, sige. Kaya lang I would, as much as I would like to talk about it today, Okay. I would like to talk about it today. Meron pa kasing hindi nakakapag-quiz sa inyo. Okay. May nag-ano sa akin eh. Merong nakiusap sa akin that he is not able to take the quiz kasi may mga issues siya with regard sa sa mga ilang bagay-bagay. Okay. So, kaya gusto ko sana siyang balikan, kaya lang naalala ko, yun nga, may hindi pa ako nabibigyan ng quiz sa inyo. So, nakiusap siya kung pwede kong mag-special quiz siya. Okay. So, although I'm not saying that, I'm not saying na I'll be giving the same set of questions. Okay. Most likely hindi ako magbibigay ng same set of questions to that student. Okay. But ayoko lang munang i-discuss muna yung part na 'yon. Okay, yung part nung sa circuit. Okay. Pero if you may also check yung huling tatlong videos na yung recorded lecture that I have posted sa playlist niyo. Okay. I have extensively discussed that. Okay. Kasi naalala ko pala, may nagtanong sa akin, merong isang nagtanong sa akin sa inyo, okay, among your classmates. Sa circuit kasi, okay? Circuit yung tinanong niya. Okay. And yung tanong niya kasi tungkol sa charges. So naisip ko nung I was discussing the circuits. Okay. Naisip ko, baka pala hindi pa pala kayo nakakapag KVL. Baka hindi pa kayo nakakapag Ohm's law eh. Nakapag Ohm's law na ba kayo? Nakapag Ohm's law na kayo. O so nakapag na kayo, Kirchhoff's law na kayo. So you already know what are the Kirchhoff's laws. So bigla nagbaba. Ulit nga, hands down muna. Hands down muna tayo. Okay. Let me ask. Okay na kayo sa Ohm's law? You know Ohm's law already? Sige, hands down. Bago pala yun. So, ay, charges no. Circuits 2 na kayo, di ba? Second question ko yun. Circuits 2 na kayo, di ba? You're in circuits 2. Electric circuits 2 or ano ba? Ano bang
1 po, sir. Circuits 1 po.
Circuits 1 pa lang kayo. Okay, sige. Okay lang. Wala namang problema doon. The difference lang naman between circuits 1 and circuits 2 is yung bukod sa degree of difficulty, you would be dealing with DC circuits sa circuits 1. Pero tapos sa circuits 2, you will be dealing with AC circuits. Ito naman yung mostly difference na. Pero basically lahat naman ng laws o lahat ng lahat ng laws that are applied to circuits 1 applicable din naman sa circuits 2 with some konting modifications sa in terms ng circuits in terms ng consideration that your current in the electrical network is now an alternating current. Okay, so may pag-uusapan na kayo mga frequency, phasor, phase, mga ganun sa circuits 2. Okay. Although ang approach kasi na ginamit ko, the approach that I used dun sa discussion ko sa recorded lecture ninyo was more of like AC circuit siya. You are dealing with AC circuit pero yung approach parang DC. Okay, parang ni-reduce ko yung problem sa DC analysis. Okay. Yung hindi ko mali pala yung term na ginamit ko. Yung approach katulad or similar to what you do in DC circuits. Okay? Even if the circuit is an AC or an alternating current circuit. Okay? We are analyzing an AC circuit. Okay? But the approach, okay, is more or less similar to the approach used in analyzing DC circuits. Okay? At nagawa natin yun because of Laplace transform. So, kung papanoorin niyo mabuti yung ano, actually yung i-discuss kung i-discuss niyo yung circuits na 'yan, okay. Yun din yung ano, yun din yung i-discuss ko supposedly today. Okay. Okay, third question ko. Tapos na kayo ng Kirchhoff's law or Kirchhoff's laws pala. Okay. So, alam niyo na kung paano mag-apply ng KVL, ng KCL. Okay? Yun yung ano, yung implication nun ha. If you're done with ano, with Kirchhoff's laws, ang expectation ko ngayon is alam niyo na kung paano mag-apply ng KVL, ng KCL. Okay, so sige. So, ibig sabihin, maiintindihan niyo na pala yung discussion ko doon sa recorded lecture. Tama ba? Yung sa naman eh. Ang ginawa ko naman doon, hindi naman tayo nag-parallel circuit doon eh. Okay. Series RLC circuit lang naman yung nasa discussion ko. Okay. I discuss series RLC circuit lang naman. I did not discuss parallel circuits na pa. Yan. Series RLC circuit na naman siya. So, simpleng ano, simpleng KVL lang ito. Okay? Although, technically, if you can also think about this, you can also use voltage divider here. Tama ba? For example, if I'm sa bagay, ang hinahanap pala natin current, no? So, hindi pala pwedeng voltage divider. Pero if we're looking for voltage, for example, if instead we're looking for voltage across the inductor here, okay? Which hindi pa kayo familiar, di ba? Hindi pa kayo familiar kung ano ginagawa ng inductor. Tama ba? So, sige, okay lang yan. Although, binanggit ko dito, okay, what I did remember mentioning here in the recorded lecture is that, yung ano ninyo, yung your inductor at saka your capacitor are energy storage devices. Okay? I mentioned it dun sa recorded lecture niyo. Capacitors and inductors both store energy. And they store energy when you store energy, it means it store charges. Okay? Alam naman natin that everything sa electrical circuits, everything starts with charges. Okay? When you force your charge to move, okay? When you force your charge to move, okay? Pag pinagalaw niyo yung charge niyo, okay, the time rate of the movement of that charge is called current. Inaral niyo yun sa Circuits 1. Tama ba? Ayun. So, when you cause your charge to move, okay, it induces current. Okay, pag pinagalaw niyo yung charges niyo, magkakaroon kayo ng current. That is why ito yung definition natin ng current. Okay? And how do you make your charges move? Okay, paano niyo mapapagalaw yung charges na yan? Okay? Gagamitan niyo yan ng electromotive force, which usually is a voltage supply. So kung may voltage supply kayo, okay, that's an electromotive force that would push charges, okay, that would push charges in order for it to move. And when it moves, okay, it would now produce current. Okay. Now, ang role ngayon nito capacitor tsaka inductor niyo, which hindi niyo pa naaaral dahil wala pa kayo diyan. Okay, dahil circuits 1 pa pala kayo. Okay. The role of these two is to actually store this. Okay? So kukunin para siyang energy storage devices. These are energy storage devices. Okay? But they store energy or they store charges in different forms or in different manner. So your capacitor would store this in what we call an electrostatic field. Okay? Pag nag-circuits to kayo, malalaman nyo kung ano ibig sabihin ng electrostatic field. While inductors, store naman charges in terms of magnetic field. Okay? So they store their these two store your charges in different ways. Okay? So they differ in terms of how they store your charges. Okay? Pero again, if you have stored charges on a certain, for example, in electrostatic field, if you force this stored charge to move, magpo-produce na naman yan ng current. Okay, ganoon din sa magnetic field. Pag meron kayo naka-store na charge sa magnetic field, if you force that to move, okay, magkakaroon na naman kayo ng current. Okay? Now, the ability of the capacitor of the inductor to resist, okay, to resist those forcing signals or forcing forces to knock off charges in these fields. Yung ability nila para ma-resist, okay, para pigilan yung force na tanggalin sa kanila yung naka-store na charge. Okay, yun yung tinatawag nating impedance. Okay? And yan, ang definition ng impedance is basically resistance of energy storage devices or components, okay, to changes in current. Basically, itong changes in current na to involve knocking off charges that are stored in these two devices. So, yun din tawag nating impedance. Pwede nyo isipin niya ng ganito. Kung sa DC, sa pinag-aaralan nyo ngayon, ano ulit yung resistance? Tapos na kayo dyan kasi tapos na kayo ng Ohm's law eh. So, na-define nyo na kung ano yung resistance. Ano yung resistance ulit? Ayan. Wala nakakaalala kung ano ang resistance. O, nare-review pa yung notes. Yun. Ability to oppose current flow. Or specifically, ability of a material, okay, to oppose current flow. Yun yung ano. Ayun, ayan, yun na nga. Okay, it's the ability of a material to oppose current flow. So, in terms ng charges, okay, or in terms ng charges that are flowing in a certain material, okay, pag yung material ninyo, okay, has a high ability, okay, or is able to stop your charges from flowing, okay, then sinasabi natin na yung material na yun, mataas yung charge. Okay? Now, in terms naman ng AC, parang ito yung counterpart niya. Pero, parang hindi ko sinasabing pareho sila. Pero parang kung pwede nyo pag-isipan na sa DC, meron kayong resistance, sa AC, meron kayong impedance. Okay? In terms that, both of them is actually a measure of opposition. Both of them measures opposition. Pero in DC, or in the resistance, opposes the current flow itself. Okay? But the impedance opposes changes in current. As much as possible, your circuit would not want your current to change. Okay? Tandaan nyo kung alternating current yan, ibig sabihin nun, your current always changes. Kung alternating current siya. Kung DC kasi, hindi nag-change yung value ng current niyo or hindi nag-change yung hindi nag-change ng polarity in terms ng ano. Kaya alternating current kasi may positive current, may negative current. Okay? Sa DC, it's either positive current lang or negative current lang. Okay? Yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawang yun. Okay. Now, in terms of yun nga ng impedance, these two components, okay, would try to attempt not to, or would try to resist, okay, as much as possible for your current to actually change, okay, in value. Okay, by actually storing them first. Okay? So yun yung nila. Kaya ang gagawin natin actually, ang ginagawa natin dito is if we have a circuit something like this, okay, we could actually analyze this in terms of impedances. So may binigay nga akong parang dito. Ito. Ito yung impedances ng mga components niyo in S domain. So ngayon, pag inanalyze nyo ngayon siya, parang DC circuit na lang din. Parang iti-treat nyo na lang siya as parang mga resistors. Pero instead of actually using the resistor parameter, ito yung gagamitin niyo. Okay, so ayun, ipag-usapan natin in another part of our discussion. Kasi pag nasa control systems tayo, babalikan natin 'to. Okay. When we add on the feedback and control systems, pag-uusapan natin siya ulit. Okay. So, ayun. And I want you to remember this part. Okay. And actually, may isa pa akong gusto i-discuss sa inyo. Kasi ito, electrical systems ito eh. Okay. I would also like to talk about mechanical systems. Okay. Pero baka sa ibang sa ibang lesson ko na siya i-tackle. Baka sa laboratory. If naka-enroll kayo sa laboratory, baka doon ko siya ipasok. Okay. Anyway, may mga applications tayo sa engineering. Okay, electrical networks saka mechanical systems that would actually make use of the tools that we are studying in numerical methods. So baka doon natin siya pag-usapan. Okay? So ayun. So I'll try to skip that part muna. Okay? Yung circuits niyo, pag-usapan natin sa ibang pagkakataon. So I think we will still have a venue on where we can actually talk about this. Okay? So is this understood? Okay, so sige. Also I would also like to try to solicit your opinion regarding the experience you had dun sa quiz. Okay? Like sige, ito muna yung una kong tanong para medyo tayo. Sufficient ba yung oras?
Hindi po, sir.
Okay. So hindi. So sa next quiz gusto niyo habaan siya. Considering na ganun din karami yung questions. Do you want your quiz to be timed longer? Your quiz has been 8 hours eh. Naka-design yung quiz niya para sa 8 hours. So do you want it to be longer? So sige. Tingnan I'll study this time limit. So which means kung halimbawa nagsimula tayo ng if we are to start if we started 2 PM last quiz 1. Kung kahabaan natin to, we would be starting earlier. Is that okay? So sige. Sige, pag-isipan ko 'yan Okay. Now, let us proceed with our next topics. Okay. For your quiz number 2. Okay. We will cover ang target ko, we will cover 3 topics. Kaya lang inisip ko kasi yung third topic, parang alanganin masyado. So, baka 2 topics lang tayo para sa quiz number 2. Okay. So, I am thinking that we will cover 2 topics for quiz number 2. Okay. Which related topics kasi siya. Okay. Yung next 2 topics kasi natin is number 1, a discussion on sequences and series. Okay? In which would lead us to to topic number 5. Okay? So yung topic number 4 natin is about sequences and series. Okay? And then which is in preparation for our discussion of topic number 5. Okay? Which is the ODE solutions of the power series solution method for ordinary differential equations. Okay. So, ito yung magiging flow na, no? We will discuss dito sa topic 4 sequences first. We will review what are sequences, and then we will review what are series. Okay. And then most of the topics discussed in topic 4 would actually concern how do we say whether a series has a sum or not. Okay? We will try to determine whether a given series has a sum or not. Bakit natin kailangan 'yun? Number 1, series that don't have a sum, okay, is not a usable series. Okay? Hindi natin magagamit yung series na walang sum. Okay? What we would want to have is a series, okay, that would boil down to a certain value. Okay? So most of the topics discussed in topic 4, that would cover parang 4.3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Parang 6 topics ang i-cover niya doon. And then at the later part, we will discuss Taylor series and Maclaurin series. Yung development ng Taylor series at saka ng Maclaurin series. Okay? And we will discover, okay, Taylor series, Maclaurin series, and power series. Tatlo pala. Okay? We will discuss those 3 series. Okay? 3 series that are used in applications. Taylor series, Maclaurin series, and power series. Okay? So these three series kasi, these 3 types of series kasi will be used, okay? Will be used in the next topic. Because some of the topics that some of the differential equations that we have are difficult to solve using yung conventional method natin, even with Laplace transforms. Okay? So ito so far, aside from the methods that you have studied in solving first order equations, and that includes variable separation, substitution, okay? Yung naalala niyo ba yung method yun na magsasubstitute kayo ng y equals uv? Naalala niyo yan, yung method na yan? So, yun. Ano pa ba? So that's by substitution. Yun lang yung naalala ko. Parang hindi na ako nakapagturo ng DE, matagal na. Ano pa ba? Sige, maraming pa yun. Those are the methods that you use for solving first order equations. And whether yung first ang maganda kasi sa ginawa ninyo sa DE is that whether your equation is non-linear or linear, okay, meron kayong methods para sa lahat. Basta first equation, first order equation siya. Okay? But when you actually took your tools or took your equations one step higher, ibig sabihin you attempted to solve second order equations. Okay? Bigla kayo na limit ngayon sa linear at constant coefficient. Okay? You were limited to linear and constant coefficient equations. When you raised your equation, when you raise the order of your equation higher. Okay? So hindi niyo na ngayon ma-cover yung mga non-linear equations. Unless gumawa kayo ng linearization. Pinag-aralan niyo ba 'yon? How to linearize non-linear equations? Hindi, no? Oo, kasi hindi mahirap i-discuss yun sa DE. Mahirap isingit. Okay. So, understandable yan. Ako minsan ko pa lang siya naisingit sa I've been teaching differential equations siguro for around ito na ba ako turo? 14 years na pala akong turo. Siguro nagturo ako ng differential equations mga 8 years out of that 14. Okay, so isang sem ko pa lang naisingit yung nonlinear equations na yun or linearization pala. So it's really tough to Okay, pero ang available tools nyo ngayon to solve linear and constant coefficient differential equations is yung method of undetermined coefficients. Na-discuss nyo yun, di ba? Okay, so you were able to discuss method of undetermined coefficients. 4 na lang yung nakakaalala sa inyo. Or 5. Ayan, naging 5. Okay, so yun. And although parang tinanong ko to before, pero hindi niyo naabutan yung variation of parameters, no?
Hindi po.
Hindi niyo inabutan. Variation of parameters can actually be applied to some class of differential equation having variable coefficients. So there is this special class of differential equation that contains variable coefficients, okay, which can be solved using variation of parameters. Okay. And the thing about if you would really observe, yung mga tools na ginagamit ninyo to solve differential equations are actually tools that apply to certain classes of differential equations. For example, yung separation of variable, kailangan masa-separate mo yung variables. If you're not able to separate the variables, okay, tingnan mo kung pwede yung substitution because tingnan mo kung pwede yung substitution. Pero meron ding certain test na ginagamit. Kung maalala niyo yung test for homogeneity of differentials. Yung naalala niyo ba yun? Yung how do you determine if the differentials of a differential equation are homogeneous? Halimbawa ganito, x square plus 2xy plus y square dx plus xy dy. Bawa yan. Hindi yan separable, di ba? Tama ba? Hindi nyo masa-separate yung variables niyan. Okay, what do you do next? Tingnan nyo kung homogeneous tong differentials niya. And when you say homogeneous siya, homogeneous in terms of degree. Like for example, ito, yung magiging degree nito is 2. Dahil yung first term nito, ang power ay 2. Yung second term, power nito 1, plus yung power nito na 1. So, 2 din yung degree ng second term. Tapos ito, 2 rin yung degree nitong third term niyo. So, yung degree nitong first differential niyo is 2, which is the same thing as this one. So, 2 rin. Kapag na-satisfy niyo yung test na yan, you say that your equation is homogeneous in terms of differentials. Naalala niyo to? Ngayon, kapag ganito, pag na-satisfy ko tong test na to, anong gagawin kong method? How do I proceed with solving this one?
Variable transformation po, sir.
So I'd let variable transformation. So I'd let I'd let either
Y
x or y. So y equals
dx.
dx yan. Tapos yung dy ninyo, gagawin yung v dx plus x
Plus x dv.
Yan. So ito yung gagawin ninyo. Okay? Pero this method would only apply, okay? Ito yung pinapoint ko. This method would only apply kung masasatisfy nyo yung test no homogeneity of differentials. If you're not able to satisfy that, hanap na naman ka ibang method. Okay. You get my point? most of the tools that you are using, okay, most of the tools that you are using in solving these differential equations are actually applicable only to certain class of equations. So hindi siya universal hindi siya universal na method. Meron lang siyang binabagayan, okay? And that's the problem with most of the differential equations that we have. Okay? That is why we will keep on extending. Okay? We will keep on extending your set of tools. Okay? So since ang mga methods ninyo, for example, ang method of undetermined coefficient applies only to higher ordered linear constant coefficient differential equation. Okay? Ito ang keyword dito, kailangan constant coefficient siya. At isa pa, linear. Okay? Whether it's homogeneous or non-homogeneous, okay lang to. Method of undetermined coefficient. Okay? And yung isang tool din, yung variation of parameters, only applies to higher ordered, again, linear, okay? Certain class of variable coefficient, DE. With exceptions pa yan. Kumbaga, hindi lahat yan covered. Okay? In equations where you can apply method of undetermined coefficients, that's also the equations where you can apply Laplace transform. So most equations that can be solved using MUC can also be solved using Laplace transform methods. And some equations that can be solved using variation of parameters can also be solved by Laplace transforms. Okay? So meron lang mga binabagayan tong tool na to. So that is why what we will do is we will add another tool in your arsenal. Okay? Which is yung tinatawag nating power series solution of ODE. Pero again, may babagayan lang din to. That's the unfortunate thing about this one. May babagayan lang din to. There are some classes of differential equations that would just be fit, okay, into this method. Okay. But the thing is that the method actually involves kasi, okay, the method actually involves your differential equation to first be expressed as power series. You need to express your differential equation first as power series. Okay? And if we are lucky enough, the solutions may actually be also yung power series na solution niya. Kasi kapag gumamit kayo ng method ng power series, since you are to expand your ODE in terms of power series, okay? Ang solution niya naka-power series din. Okay? But sometimes, and if you are lucky enough, this solution actually takes familiar Taylor series or Maclaurin series functions. Okay? Yung solutions na yan, nagiging Taylor series function siya or Maclaurin series function siya. So ngayon, masisimplify natin yung solution natin. And that is if we are lucky na. Okay? But most of the equations of practical use, hindi na pupunta sa ganyan. Okay? Hindi siya napupunta sa ganyang method. Okay? So that's one motivation that we have. Okay? There are simple classes of ODEs that whose solution takes the familiar Taylor series or Maclaurin series functions. Okay, that's one. Okay. Number two. Yung power series solutions of ODE kasi sometimes allows us to do numerical calculations. Okay? It actually allows us to do numerical calculations in order to come up with a numerical solution for ODE. Okay? If these ODEs, if these differential equations actually describe a certain physical or certain engineering phenomenon or problem. Okay. Madalas hindi naman natin kailangan ng analytic solution eh. Okay? Most of the time, we do not need analytic solution, especially if this concerns physical phenomenon or engineering problems. Okay? Most of the time, we do not need analytic solutions. We do not need equations as solutions. Sapat na yung numerical solution siya. Even if the solution turns out to be a table of data. Okay? Where you have f of t and t. Tapos ito yung mga numbers na involved niya. Kahit yan lang yung solution na makuha natin, malaking bagay na yan. If we are dealing with actual engineering problems. Okay. So that is why itong power series solution methods ito, okay, is also useful for those problems that is really hard to solve analytically. Pag yung problem niyo mahirap i-solve talaga using analytic terms. When you say analytic terms, yung ginagawa nyong conventional na nagde-derive kayo ng mga equations. That's analytic solution. Okay? Ngayon, dahil dito sa advanced math, we are studying advanced tools. Palalawakin natin yung perspective niyo in terms of solving problems. That we're not just specifically be looking at analytic solutions. We can also look at numerical solutions. Is that clear? So doon tayo papunta yung next two topics natin. So itong first part, okay. Itong first part ng topic natin about about series is actually major review. Number 1, major review. Number 2, trying to prove whether our series can be used as solutions. Okay. And number 3, actually to discuss this, itong power series. Anong ibig sabihin ng power series? Ano yung Taylor series or Maclaurin series? Ano yung mga yan? Pero just to give you a preview, sino sa inyo nakasubok ng activity 3 at saka activity 4? Sa lab. Very good, wala pa. Okay. Pero ito, may encounter nyo ito. Halimbawa yung function na e raised to x. Okay. Itong function na e raised to x. Meron tong Okay, so sige. After 8 weeks, nasa activity 0 pa rin tayo. Okay, so itong e raised to x, okay, can actually be expressed in terms of series. Okay. Yung series na sum of x raised to n over n factorial for n equals 0 up to infinity. Okay, pag ito, in-add up natin ito for certain value of x. Okay, can actually approach e raised to x. Okay. Nasa nasa activity 3 ito. Itong discussion niya dito. Pero pakita ko lang ng konti.
Meron po niyan nag-appear sa sir? Sa activity 2? Function ng Taylor.
Oo, nabanggit ko rin yata ito sa activity 2. 2 o 1? 1. Kasi 1 is about writing 1 is about writing scripts. So parang isa to sa mga pinasulat ko sa inyo. Pero papakita ko lang din dito so that satisfied tayo. Okay. So halimbawa, you want to evaluate, kita niyo yung Excel ko? Okay. So ito is e raised to 2 ito, e raised to 2. Yung nakikita niyo value na yan, e raised to 2. Okay. Ito yung sinasabi natin. If you want to evaluate e raised to 2, okay, we can use this series, okay, in order for us to evaluate e raised to 2. Pero tingnan mo natin, how do we expand this ba? So, if n is 0, if n is 0, this is x raised to 0 over 0 factorial, yung first term. Okay? Pero that's basically, ano value yung 0 factorial?
1 po.
1. Malinaw yan sa lahat ha. Ang value ng 0 factorial ay 1. By the way, lahat ba pamilya sa factorial? How do you define n factorial? Okay. Wala kayo. May stat kayo, di ba? Nung high school?
Opo, sir. Grade 10 po yan.
10, okay. Hindi nyo naalala yung factorial? Ginagamit nyo ito sa ano eh, sa combination tsaka permutation. Yan yung n factorial. Definition ng n factorial. So, if you have, say, for example, 3 factorial, okay, it means 3 times 2 times 1. O kaya, if you have 10 factorial, that means 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Naalala?
Sir, bakit po yung 0 factorial ay 1? Sinabi
Ayun.
lang din po sa amin nung grade 10, pero hindi sinabi bakit.
Bakit? Sige. Magandang tanong yan. Sige. Again, umpisahan ko siya sa definition ng factorial. Okay. So, this is n factorial equals n times n minus 1 times n minus 2. Hanggang makarating kayo dyan ng 1. Okay? Yan yung definition ng n factorial. Okay? Tapos, ano yung ibig sabihin ngayon ng n minus 1 factorial? Kasi n minus 1 to eh. N minus 1 factorial. So, magsisimula tayo ng n minus 1. Tapos, n minus 1 minus 1. So, n minus 2. Tapos, n minus 1, n minus 2 minus 1. Kumbaga, pababa pa rin siya ng terms. Okay, n minus 3. Pero, ang dulo pa rin yan, 1 pa rin. Okay? Maliwanag. Okay, saan nga ba ako papunta dito? Okay, so, makalimutan ko tuloy. N minus 1 factorial at saka kasi gusto natin define yung n factorial, yung 0 factorial. So, pag ito, dinivide ko ng n factorial, ano lalabas? Lalabas kasi dyan is n minus 1 times n minus 2 times n minus 3 hanggang 1. Yung n factorial is n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 hanggang 1. So, mananotice nyo ngayon, ito, yung mga yan, common dito. So, magka-cancel out sila. Tama? Tama ba yan? Okay. So, lalabas ngayon dyan is 1 over n. Tama ba? Kasi ito rin may iwan eh. Okay. So, ibig sabihin ngayon, yung n minus 1 factorial over n factorial equals 1 over n. Gawin natin itong n minus 1 factorial equals n factorial over n. Okay? Which, nung una pa lang dapat, obvious na. Kasi, kung yung n factorial, this one, dinivide ko ng n, ang may iwan dyan, n minus 1 factorial. Tama? Ngayon, iset natin yung n equals 1. This becomes 1 minus 1 factorial equals 1 factorial over 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So, 0 factorial equals 1 factorial is 1 over 1. Ayan. Ang dahilan nito is yung implication siya ng definition of the definition of n factorial. Because we have defined n factorial this way. Okay? And if we deduce yung iba pa, n minus 1 factorial, n minus 2 factorial, okay, we would be able to deduce na later on, kapag yung 0 factorial na ang in-evaluate nyo, that becomes 1. A weird result. This is a very weird result talaga. Okay. Pero, yun nga, implication siya ng definition. So, okay tayo dyan?
Opo, sir. Thank you po.
So ngayon, alam niyo na pag tinanong kayo, bakit ang 0 factorial ay 1? Okay. So, ayan. Alam niyo na kung bakit. So, ayun. So, lalabas ito, x raised to 0 over 0 factorial is 1. Okay. Plus, x raised to 1 over 1 factorial. So, ang second term niyo is x. Okay. Susunod dyan is x squared over 2 factorial. So, yan ay magre-result sa 1/2 x squared. Tama? Okay. Next dyan is x cubed over 3 factorial. So, that would result to 1/6 x cubed. Okay? Maliwanag to? And so on. So, ngayon, para ma-evaluate nyo ngayon yung e raised to 2, so that we can evaluate e raised to 2, we will set now x equals 2. So, e raised to 2 is actually equal to 1 plus 2 plus this is 4 over 2. Okay? Tama ba? 4 over 2. So, that's 2. Okay? Plus this is 8 over 6. So, that's 4/3. Okay? And so on. Ganyan yung mangyayari dyan. Pagka i-evaluate yung e raised to 2. Tingnan natin siya sa Excel, no? Okay. So, ganito. Ito yung n natin. Yung column na yan, yan yung magre-represent ng n. So, yung n natin, sabi dun sa sum, magsisimula sa 0. Papuntang infinity. So, gawa tayo ng, ng numbers 0, 1. Okay. Marunong ba kayo gumamit ng Excel? Sana marunong kayo gumamit ng Excel, ha? Hindi ko na i-discuss to sa pero gagamitan nyo ng Excel yung iba yung numerical methods. So, I hope na maano kayo mag-Excel. Okay. Then, computein natin yung value ng bawat term. Ibig sabihin yung ito. Ito, computein natin siya per term. So, tawagan natin siyang term. So, how do we compute it? Gagamitin natin yung formula na to. Yung x raised to n over n factorial. Yan yung tinatawag nating n term. Okay. Sa pag nag-discuss tayo mamaya, that is a raised to n term yung tawag natin diyan. So that's x raised to n over n factorial. Okay? So that's the term that So ibig sabihin if n is equal to 1, okay? You're computing for n is equal to 0, you're computing for a 0 term. So which should result to x raised to 0 over 0 factorial. So that's 1. Ito 'yun. That's a raised to 0. That's a 0. Okay? So, yun yung makikita natin dapat dito. Maliwanag yan? Okay. And then, how do we compute it? E, di gamitin yung formula. Okay? So, here, x is 2, no? So, we remember that x equals 2. Sorry. We remember that x equals 2. Okay? So, we will have 2, okay? Or, remember, the formula is, hindi ko sa may sulat eh. Ito, i-ano pa natin. Okay. Remember, this is your, this is your formula. Okay, ito. So, yun yung ilalagay natin dito. Okay. We will just have to set x equals 2. So, we will have 2 raised to n. And this is your n. Okay. And then, i-divide natin yan by, or para hindi kayo masyadong malito, lagyan natin ng parenthesis. So that's that's x raised to n divided by factorial, okay, nung n. So ito rin. Okay? Nag-guess ba yung pagsusunod ng formula? So we can verify yung first, na-solve kasi natin yung first 4 terms dito. That's 1, 2, 2 times 4 thirds. Okay, so that's 1, 2, then 2, then 4 thirds. 4 thirds is 1.3333 and so on. So tama to, no? Tama yung formula natin. So tuloy natin siya. Copy natin yung formula pababa. Hanggang n equals 20. Okay? Now, what we will do now is to add these terms. Kasi nga series siya eh. Okay, so what we will do, this is the sum, or what we call the partial sum. Okay? In which we will compute sa una, ito lang muna siya. Kasi yan na naman i-add natin eh. Okay, ito lang yan. Ito lang yung 1 lang yan. Okay. But remember, but on the next term, pagpasok nito, okay, what we will do is we will add this and this. This is the current term. We will call this the current term. Okay, and we will add it to the we will call this the previous sum, no? Previous sum. Mamaya papakita ko bakit ko tinawag na previous sum yan. So this is the previous sum. This is the current term. I-add natin sila. So this is the previous sum plus the current term. Okay. Ganito kasi mangyayari dyan. Di ba 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 thirds. Kaya ako siya tinawag na previous sum kasi ito yung magiging, pagdating ng third term, if this is now the current term, okay, this is the current term, okay, this becomes, ito, 1 plus 2, becomes the previous sum. So what we will do is we add the previous sum, which is 1 plus 2, i-add natin siya sa current term, which is 2. Maliwanag yan? So same thing with 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 thirds. Kung ito na yung current term, this would be the previous sum. So i-add natin siya. Previous sum plus current term, ito siya. Okay, so kaya ganun yung formula natin. Current term, previous sum, okay, plus current term. So ito yun. So kukupihin na natin yan. Pababa. Tingnan nyo to at saka to. Di ba malapit na yan? Or sa tingin nyo, equal na yan, di ba? Is that correct? Okay. But they are not equal, ah. Matututunan nyo sa activity 3 and activity 4 ng laboratory ninyo that those two are not equal. Okay. Because this is an exact computation. Okay. Oh, technically, this is an exact computation. Because we have used the what we call yung function ng Excel. So we in terms of categorizing this one, we will call this as the exact. Okay. Pero mind you, even Excel used an approximate method on computing this one. So technically hindi rin to exact value. Okay. In fact, malamang ginamit din ng Excel yung expansion na to. Okay. Pero let's just be less technical about it, and let us just say na since ginamit natin yung function ni Excel, okay, we will consider this to be the exact value. Okay. And this is your partial sum. Okay. These two are not equal. Technically, those two are not equal. Okay. Why? You would only achieve yung pagiging equal nito at saka nito when you actually use infinite number of terms. Okay? When you use infinite number of terms para dito. Okay? When you use infinite number of terms here. then that is the time na masasabi yung equal siya. Pero up until this point, hindi pa rin sila equal. Kasi nga, I am just using 153 terms. So therefore, they are still not equal. Yun yung thinking natin, ha? Okay? And this is actually, what is discussed in activity 4. Okay? Ito yung this is activity 4. That since you are using a method that is not exact, okay, or a procedure that is not exact, then that leads to what we call truncation error. Okay? Pero ito yung point ko. This is my point. My point is, function such as e raised to x can actually be expressed as a series. Okay? Your function such as e raised to x can actually be expressed as a series. And hindi lang e raised to x yung nag-iisa dyan. Even cosine x, sine x, okay? Hyperbolic cosine x, hyperbolic tangent x, 1 plus ln x, lahat yan, at marami pang iba, can actually be expressed as a series. Okay? In particular, this is called ito sa e raised to x lang applicable to Pero this is called, this series is a power series. Because this series evolves in terms of powers of x. Ang evolution kasi ng series niyo is 1 plus x squared plus x cubed plus x raised to 4. Ano yung 4 factorial na lang? Plus x raised to 5 times 1 over 5 factorial and so on. So, yung series niyo nag-evolve in terms of power of x. So, this is called a power series. Okay? And basically, this power series is actually derived from what we call its Maclaurin series. Madederive natin yan using a Maclaurin series. So, pag-aaral natin kung ano yung Maclaurin series. But Maclaurin series is actually a special case of what we call the Taylor series. So, Maclaurin series is a special case. So, again, pag-uusapan natin ano yung special case na yan in a later discussion. Okay? Is this clear? Okay. One of the objectives that we have for this lesson or for this part of for this topic for this topic 4 is for us to be able to devise methods, okay, or come up with methods of deriving a series expression for a given function. Okay. For example, meron tayong function like halimbawa lang 2 cosine x plus 3 sine of 3x. Can we actually express this as a series? Okay. So, may express ba natin yan as a series? Either as a power series. Actually, ang target natin dapat power series talaga. We need this to be a power series. Okay? So, yun. If we can reduce this or we can convert this into a power series. Now, bakit natin kailangan gawin siyang power series? Because this power series now is, or if this, for example, appears in your differential equation, either as a coefficient, okay, either as a coefficient of your differential equation, o kaya as an input, yung right side input, r of t, ng ng differential equation ninyo. Then, we can actually, instead of using this function, we will use this power series equivalent. Yun kasi yung motivation natin. Okay. Then from there, we will devise methods kung paano ngayon siya isasolve. Okay. So that's number 1. If a given function can actually be resolved into a certain power series expansion. And number 2, So that's number 1. Ang number 2 is to actually determine if this power series, okay, approaches the value of this function. Kung ito nga yung tamang power series para dito. It's not only that we will be able to get a power series expansion para dito. We will also have to be able to check whether this power series actually describes the values of this. Kasi maraming issues yan. There will be, makikita nyo later on as we go along. There will be issues. Okay. In particular, in what we call whether your series converges or diverges. Or what we call yung convergence, ang pangit ng sulat ko. Convergence or divergence of a series. So we will define this too. Okay? So yun yung kailangan natin ma-determine dito sa topic na to. Okay. Number 1, if a function can actually have a power series. And number 2, if that power series actually converges or diverges. Okay. Bakit nyo kailangan malaman kung convergent siya or divergent siya? Okay. Kasi pag divergent ang series, hindi nyo siya magagamit. Okay? It doesn't describe the function. Even if the derivation of the series leads us to that series. Pero if at the end nalaman natin that that series actually diverges, at least for certain values of n, for example, or a certain number of terms, okay, then we cannot be able to use that series because that does not fully describe the function that we have. Okay, what we need is for this power series to converge. Okay, what we need for that power series to converge. Pag sinabi nyo converge, mag-a-approach siya ng value that is dictated by this function. Katulad nito. Okay. As you observe, okay, yung partial sum, pag tingnan nyo yung partial sum niyo, okay, makikita nyo na paunti-unti, lumalapit siya dun sa value na 7.389. It's correct to 3 decimal places. Okay. Lumalapit siya ng paunti-unti sa 389. Actually, after ilang terms. Ito. After 11 terms. Tama na yung 4 significant figures ng ninyo. Or in fact, 5. Tama na yung 5 significant figures ng sum ninyo. Comparing ito, comparing ito here. Tama na yung 5 significant values after 11 terms. Okay. So, never mind the rest. Approximate lang naman eh. Okay. So, the point is, as you can see, that your function actually, this series actually points to a certain or what ito tinatawag natin convergence eh. It converges to a certain value. So we shall say that this series, yung sum of series or sum of x raised to n as over n factorial for n equals 0 up to infinity actually converges to e raised to x. Okay? It converges to e raised to x. Yun yung sinasabi natin. So in that case, then we say na ito na yung true representation of 2 power series expansion of e raised to x. And this now can be used, okay, as a way to solve differential equation containing this function. So, maliwanag ba yung yung motivation natin? Pa-excuse lang ako sandali mga 1 minute lang. Kukuha lang ako ng water. Ha? Saglit lang. Ayun. Okay, so I'm back. Andiyan pa ba kayo? Sige. Okay. So, nag-iingay yung aso ko. Wait lang ah. Kinuha ko na eh. At maingay. Nagtatahulan. Kala mo naman napakatapang. Okay, so ano? So review tayo, no? We will do some review on sequences and then later on we will shift to series. Okay. So a sequence is defined as a function whose domain is a set of positive integers. Okay. Again, ang importanteng malaman nyo dito is that the domain is the set of positive integers. Okay? Now, what you have to remember also is that, number one, yung set of positive integers na yan, minsan, that includes zero. I mean, in the terms of set of positive integers, hindi kasama yung zero. Okay? Pero meron mga sequences that actually start with n equals 0, okay, up to infinity. And then when n equals 1, up to infinity. So, be very vigilant. Okay? Where your n is actually what comprises your n, or what is the set of n for which your sequence and later on series and later on your series is defined. Okay? By default, which means kapag walang sinabi, okay, if it wasn't mentioned, we will consider this as your domain. Okay? Pag hindi nabanggit, okay, sa problem or sa example, okay, it means that the domain is actually the set of positive numbers. Okay? We will just include that case when the domain actually includes n equals 0. Maliwanag? So again, by default, okay, lililan ko by default, your domain is a set of positive numbers. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. By default. We will just state, okay, in some cases, whether n equals 0 is actually included in the domain. So in that case, your domain becomes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay? So here, you are given, we will denote the sequence as a bracketed function. Okay? Actually, itong mga sequences na to are basically functions also. Okay? But instead of using f of n notation or the function notation, we will use subscripted notation. Okay? So that is a sub n ang gagamitin natin. Okay? So a sub n denotes your nth term. Okay? Yung bracketed a sub n, okay, yung may bracket or yung naka-enclose sa curly braces, okay, is what we call the sequence. Okay? So, magkaiba sila ha. Ibig sabihin, yung sequence tumutukoy siya dun sa lahat ng terms. It actually denotes the entire sequence. Pero pag an lang, it actually denotes the nth term. Okay? So that is why you would see, for example, this one, okay, written as yung bracketed n, because this actually pertains to the entire sequence. Okay? So which means pag ito yung pina-evaluate sa inyo, it means ito yung mangyayari. Ipapa-isa-isa sa inyo or ipapa-enumerate sa inyo or ipapa-list sa inyo. You would be listing the terms of the sequences. Okay? Pero if you are asked, okay, what is this one? Okay? Then a value for n should be provided. For example, let's have n equals 17 here. Okay? So we will say that the 17th term, okay, the 17th term is basically what is the 17th term for this one?
2 po.
2. Yeah, kasi 17, this becomes -1. Okay? Tingnan nyo kung bakit negative 1, ha? But this is negative 1 for n equals 17. So, 3 plus negative 1, that's 2. Okay?
Sir, kaya po sequence kapag may ganon, para pong set notation din siya.
Yes. Okay. Ang sinasabi na, ang sequence kasi is actually a set of numbers. Okay? So, a sequence is actually a set of number. Set of numbers. Is a set of numbers. Okay. Following a certain rule. Merong rule kasi na pinag-usapan. And that rule actually pertains to this. Yung end term niya. That's the rule. That's how you generate the set. Okay. Pero that is not just the way we specify the rule for a sequence. Okay. Pwedeng verbal. Okay, pwede sabihin natin that multiples of 5, for example. So, yun yung sequence nyo. Okay. So the reason why we're using the curly braces, because sequence is basically a set of numbers. So naka-set notation din siya. So it would be better, okay, if you actually write, for example, itong first 4 terms, no, instead of just writing it that way, you also report it this way. An, okay, equals 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, and so on. Yan. You also report the sequence this way. Although since ang pinag-aaralan naman natin is sequence, and later on, mag-shift naman tayo sa series, okay, acceptable din naman yung kahit hindi na naka-set notation. Okay, I just want to emphasize na in this material that you are reading, this refers to the entire sequence or the entire set of numbers that defines the sequence. That comprises the sequence. Maliwanag yan? Hindi pala defines, composes or comprise. Para mali pa rin. Sige. Basta yun. Yung bumubuo. Yung bumubuo nung sequence niya. Okay? So yun yung ibig sabihin ng bracketed notation na yan. Okay. Now, and also I would like to state that yung rule, aside from stating your rule in terms of a formula, for example, or an expression, it can also be a narrative or verbal rule. Okay? So, yeah, terms of the recursively defined sequence, dn, where d1, okay, is 25 and dn plus 1 is dn minus 5. So, recursively, it means that the next term depends on some other terms in the past. Okay, so in this case, this is the next term. Okay? And it depends on the previous term. So which means that you have to know what is the previous term so that you would be able to know what would be the next term. So kapag titignan nyo itong D, okay, if you look at this D, so you start with D1 equals 25. So ito siya. Okay. So the next term to that, sabi is the previous term minus 5. So if this is the previous term, this term is the previous term minus 5. So that should be 20. Okay. And then this term is the previous term, which is 20. Okay, minus 5. Okay, which is 15. So yung terms nito, okay, yung dn is basically 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 0, and so on. Okay? Is this clear? Okay. Also, let me emphasize yung difference between these two sequences. Say for example, you have the sequence 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, dot, dot, dot. Sabi natin dot, dot, dot. Tapos 121, 144, at saka 169. Okay? And then close. As opposed to the sequence 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, dot, 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 121, 144, 169, dot, 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 and then close. Okay? I would like to emphasize the difference between this and this. Okay? This denotes a sequence having finite number of terms. Okay? It denotes a sequence having a finite number of terms. So yung dot, dot, dot na ginamit dito is just used to indicate that the terms here are actually following the same rules that you have here. Okay? But it actually continues, and the last term is 169. So therefore, there is a limited, or there is a finite number of terms here. Okay? Which ends at this term. Okay, so therefore, the number of terms here, okay, sorry, the number of terms here, okay, is 13, tama? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 na kasi ito eh. 11, 12, 13. So 13 yan. Okay. By the way, ano yung rule lang ginagamit ko dito? What rule do I use to generate this sequence of terms? Anyone? Anong rule lang ginagamit ko to generate the sequence of the terms? Hala. Ano yung first term? What's the first term of that sequence? Wait lang. Andiyan pa ba kayo? Make sense nga. Andiyan pa kayo. Okay. Andiyan pa kayo. Sige. Ano yung first term ng sequence niyo? Ito. What is A1 here? 1. Okay. Ano yung A2?
4 po.
4. Ano yung A3?
9 po.
9. Okay. Ito yung N ha. Okay. Yung N nyo dito is N equals 1. Yung N nyo dito is N equals 2. Yung N nyo dito is N equals 3. So how do I generate these terms in terms of this N?
N squared po.
N squared. So yun yung rule na sinasabi ko. That's N squared.
Yung general rule, sir.
Yes, Di ba nga, sinabi natin, sequence, set of numbers following a certain rule. Your certain rule can be in terms of an equation or in terms of this narrative, for example. Or in terms of a verbal rule. Okay? So, yung rule na inaan natin dito is N squared. Right? So, actually, same din siya dito. Okay? Maliwanag? By the way, if I remember correctly, no, kasi nagturo din ako ng senior high school as I was simultaneously nagtuturo ako sa NU. If I remember correctly, this is under your pre-calculus subject, yung mga nag-STEM. Sequences are under pre-calculus, tama ba?
Nasa grade 10 na rin po, sir.
Okay, grade 11 kasi ako nagturo ng ng pre-calculus.
Pero
pero
ano
hindi
nga
pa
po,
hindi siya pre-calculus.
Gen Math po ata.
Gen Math? Okay. May topic kasi kayo sa may topic kasi akong tinuro sa pre-calculus. Ang tawag sa topic na 'yon ay inductive reasoning. Dinanan niyo 'to?
Parang po, sir.
Hindi po, sir.
Ha? Dinanan niyo?
Hindi po.
Hindi. Okay. Pero ito 'yan. When you say inductive reasoning, okay. It means It means from given examples. Okay. From given particular examples. You are asked to generate a rule. Okay, on how these samples came about. Okay? Paano yung mga particular examples na yun? Okay. Can lead to a generalization. Okay. That is opposed to deductive.
Sa ano po, sir? Sa mathematics in the modern world, yung
Pinag-isapan niyo to?
inductive and deductive.
Okay. Deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning, pabaliktad naman. Meron kayong general rule. Okay. Bigyan niyo ako ng examples ng For example, halimbawa, bigyan niyo ako ng examples ng ng colors, for example. Bigyan niyo ako ng example ng color. Okay. Halimbawa, magbigay kayo, sige. Green, yung ballpen ko. Green. Ano ba?
Red po, sir.
Red. Sige.
Blue.
Blue.
Pink.
Orange.
Black.
Pink. Orange.
Kahit
Okay,
white.
White. Huwag niyo bibigay po siya, hindi ko rin spelling eh. Basta yun. Beige, halimbawa. Ayan. Okay. So, yan yung ibig sabihin nito, from a general category, bigyan niyo siya ng mga examples. That's deductive. Okay? You are deducing from a general rule. Okay? Pero, halimbawa, magbigay ako, say for example, ito. Halimbawa, wala akong maisip. Halimbawa ito, mango, orange, grapes, apple. Sa palagay niyo, ano yung nililista ko?
Prutas, sir.
Fruits. Okay. Okay. From the given examples, nakuha niyo yung general rule nung mga examples ko. Tawag doon, inductive reasoning. Okay? Maliwanag yan? Okay. In the same manner, that ganito. Pag binigyan ko kayo ng rule na an equals n square, tapos generate niyo yung yung mga terms niyan, like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on. You are using deduction. Okay? You are using deduction in order to come up with these terms galing sa general rule. So from the general rule, papunta sa mga examples, that's deduction or deductive reasoning. Okay? Pero, pag ang binigay ko sa inyo is yung 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and I ask you to generate a general rule for that, which is n square, yan yung tawag yung induction or inductive reasoning. Maliwanag to? Okay, and here's the thing. Dapat pareho nyo siyang magawa. That's my my point there. Dapat you'd be able to navigate both ways. Ibig sabihin, you know how to deduce. Okay? In this case, you know how to deduce terms of a series a sequence given a general rule. Okay? And at the same time, okay, you also know how to create a rule, okay, out of the terms of a sequence, okay, using inductive reasoning. Maliwanag ba? Naalala ko kasi tinuro ko to sa pre-calculus. Dahil merong isang part doon that discusses inductive reasoning. Okay. So kaya naalala ko itong part na to. Okay. Anyway, so lumayo ako sa kwento ko. So ayun. So this is the general rule. Okay. Now, ang sinasabi ko ngayon is that the difference between this set notation and this set notation is yung first notation nyo is a sequence having finite number of terms. That is, the number of terms, okay, is 13 because you can only have 13 terms here. Okay? Pero pag ito, nilagyan nyo ng dot, dot, dot sa dulo. By the way, don't forget itong comma na to bago kayo mag dot, dot, dot. Okay. This now indicates that your sequence has an infinite number of terms. So this now indicates an infinite or infinitely sequence having infinite number of terms. Yun yung tamang andun. Yun yung mas correct na term doon. Sequence with infinite number of terms. Okay? So ito. Pag naglagay tayo ng dot, dot, dot sa dulo. Is that clear?
Sir, di ba may infinite na nagiging finite?
Yes, pagka truncate natin for example yung ating sequence. Katulad nito, this is the general rule, di ba? Okay, this is the general rule. Pero ganito. The general rule, say for example is an, okay? Is n square. Okay. By this at face value, okay, at face value, this seems that this sequence should be an infinite this sequence should have an infinite number of terms. Kasi wala namang sinabi tungkol sa n eh. It doesn't put any limit on the number of terms of n. So this is a sequence having an infinite number of terms. Because it doesn't tell us about n. It doesn't tell us about how many n's or up to what n do we consider this to be. Pero pagka ito, ginawa niyang for example, ginawa niyang yung n nyo is from 1, okay, up to, say for example, 30. Then that's the time that this sequence becomes a finite number of terms. A sequence having finite number of terms. So, kumbaga, tinatruncate natin yung terms 14 pataas. Tinatanggal natin siya sa consideration. We call that truncation. Nasagot ko ba yung tanong mo, Mr. Kurek?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, so pwede siyang our sequence can have infinite number of terms. It can also have finite number of terms depending on how it is expressed. By default, if the expression or if the notation doesn't tell anything about n, okay? If the expression doesn't tell anything about n, we can consider that sequence to be of finite number of terms. O kaya para medyo concise din yung ginagamit kong language or vocabulary dito. Pag sinabi natin finite number of terms, sabihin natin infinite number of terms, pwede natin sabihin ito na infinite length sequence. Length pertains to how many number of terms included. Okay ba yan? We will use the term length, okay, to denote how many terms our sequence has. Katulad nito, nilagay ko dito. Yung n equals 30 na to. Okay? We can say that this sequence is a length 13 sequence. So length 13 sequence means your sequence has 13 terms. Is that clear? So in other words, this first sequence is a finite length sequence. Okay, this sequence is a finite length sequence. This second sequence is an infinitely, or mali. This sequence has infinite length. Yun. Yun lang pala, ganun pa kasi ito yan. This second sequence has infinite length. Okay? Or pwede nyo sabihing infinitely length sequence. Tama naman yung grammar nun. Infinitely length. Okay. So, maliwanag tayo sa mga terms na ginagamit natin. Okay. Now, let us spend the last 10 minutes of our discussion. Hindi mo lang ako nakalis ng 4.1. Dami ko 50. Let's spend the last 10 minutes or 9 minutes of our discussion in presenting what is the limit of the sequence. Okay. So the limit of the sequence is the limit of an, okay, as n approaches infinity. And this only applies with infinitely length sequences. When your sequence has an infinite number of terms, okay, we would like to know to what value does your n term approaches to. Okay. So which means that if there is a certain number, okay, there is a certain number that your sequence or your n term approaches to, then we will consider that as the limit of your sequence. So yung definition na to, this definition is actually illustrated here. Okay, there is a very small number. There is this very small positive number. Okay, that when you add it and subtract it to L, okay, it actually denotes yung limits kung saan lang tatakbo o saan lang maglalaro yung mga terms of sequences ninyo. And eventually, your last term, your an, your n term, would actually be approaching the value of n. So if we can see that your sequence goes this way, okay, if we can see that at one point, your sequence would actually go in this manner na meron lang siyang upper at saka lower limit, okay, then eventually, we will be able to conclude na mag-a-approach din yan ng certain value as long as hindi siya lumalagpas sa limit na yan. Okay? And if we can observe few terms of our sequence to be within that limit, okay, then we will say that our sequence has a limit L. Okay? And here's the thing. If L exists, if there is such number as L for our sequence, okay, then the sequence, series ba sinabi ko kanina? If this L exists for our given sequence, okay, then the sequence is said to be convergent. Okay? Otherwise, if L does not exist, okay, then the sequence is said to be divergent. Maliwanag? Kung may evaluate natin tong L na to, and it turns out that L is a finite number, okay, L is a finite number, then we can say that the sequence is convergent. Otherwise, kapag hindi natin ma-evaluate yung L na yan, then we will say that that sequence is divergent. Okay? So, ayun. Now, one way to kasi here's the thing. when you are evaluating limits, okay, when we are evaluating limits, we actually use the concept of limits. Okay, we actually use the concept of limits to continuous function. Okay, we actually use the concept of limits to continuous function. Okay? Hindi natin dinedefine yung limits sa functions that are discrete. In the case kasi of sequences, since ang domain ninyo is the set of positive integers, it turns out na ganito yung function ninyo. Yan, ganyan lang siya. Okay? Hindi siya ganito. Hindi siya yung continuous na katulad nung pagkakaintindi natin. If I actually connect these dots, okay, using a certain way, okay, dictated by the general equation of this curve, okay, then continuous yung function ko. But in the case of sequences, they are actually considered discrete. Alam ko nabanggit ko na sa inyo yung pagkakaiba ng discrete functions saka ng continuous functions. So in this case, yung sequences nyo are actually discrete because you only define them, okay, in terms of positive integers. So we don't have the concept of limits to continuous function. Pero ganito gagawin natin. When you are evaluating limits, with very, very few exceptions, most of the limit functions or most of the limit operations that we will have can be actually applied to discrete functions such as sequences. Okay. So, di natin siya ipo-prove na pwede. Pero na pwede siya. Okay. Pero ang ginagawa kasi ang ginagawa natin dito is if we have an, okay, if we have the general rule for an, gawin natin siyang function of x. Okay, with n, ginagawa nating x. Tapos we consider f of x to be continuous. Okay? And then from there, we will evaluate now the limit of f of x as your x approaches infinity. Again, thinking that f of x is a continuous function. Okay. Pero you don't need to do this step naman. Pwede naman tayong dumiretso na lang sa evaluation ng limit na to. Basta ang understanding lang natin is that when we are evaluating limits, okay, even if our function is discrete, okay, ang thinking natin, kunwari, continuous siya. Dealing with what we call quasi-continuous function. Pero yung technicality na yan, huwag niyo masyadong isipin. Ang importante, mag-evaluate tayo ng limits. Yun. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. Like this one. Okay. 2 minutes ako para i-discuss the example na to. Like this one. So, find the limit of the sequence whose nth term is 1 plus 1 over m raised to n. Okay. So, if that is if this is the nth term of your sequence, then if we want to evaluate the limit of that sequence, then we will have to evaluate the limit of an for n as n approaches infinity. Again, ang proper steps nito, yung an, gawin nating f of x. Okay? So, yung ngayon, yung f of x natin becomes 1 plus 1 over x raised to x. Ganyan yung mangyayari. Tapos, evaluate natin yung limit of f of x as x approaches infinity. Okay? And in this case, yung 1 plus 1 over x raised to x, ito, inaral nyo itong limit na to. This is a very specific expression that you have studied when you were studying limits. Mali yung mali yung sinulat ko. Should have been should have been the limit of 1 plus 1 over x raised to x as x approaches infinity. This is a very specific expression that you have studied when you were studying limits in calculus, in differential calculus. Because that limit actually approaches e. Okay? Or e. Okay. Check natin para ma-evaluate nyo siya. Bigyan nyo lang ako ng mga 1 minute or 2 minutes, mag-overtime lang ako ng konti. Pakita ko lang kung paano mag-approach ng iyan. And how you actually can evaluate limits. Okay. numerically. Ito. Let's have 1 plus 1 over x raised to x. Okay. Now, we're trying to evaluate this as x approaches infinity. So, we can actually assign it a very large number. Say, 9999. Okay. Very large number. Okay. So, pag ini-equal natin yan, that is around 2.718145. Sulat ko yung value dito. That is 2.718, ano yan? 718.146 pala. Okay. 146, yeah. Approximately, ha? That is 1 plus 1 over 9999 raised to 9999. Okay? Approximately ito siya. Okay. Tingnan niyo yung value ng e. E raised to, e raised to 1 is, yan. E raised to 1 is 2.71828. Okay. Of course, we do not expect na mag-equal yan dalawang yan because we are using, again, an approximate process, okay, for an exact procedure. So there is bound to be differences between the two. Okay. Pero, pag pinataas nyo pa yung value na yan, actually, mag-a-approach yun dito. Pero again, i-recall nyo sa calculus nyo, pinag-aralan nyo itong limit na to. Okay. Go back to your calculus notes, pinag-aralan nyo yung limit na yan. So that we will say, okay, we will say that the limit of this, this sequence is e. So here's one thing that you want, that I want you to do. Generate siguro 100 terms nito, either using MATLAB or Excel or Octave. Okay, generate niyo yung first 100 terms yan. Tingnan niyo, papunta yan ng value na to, ng 2.71828. Okay? I would like you to try that para ma-appreciate niyo yung sinasabing limits nung sequence. So, gawa kayo ng numerical solution for that. Okay? So, may questions ba? Do you have questions so far? Wala naman. Sige. So, sige, let's dismiss na to. Let's dismiss our class. It's likely na may meeting tayo sa Tuesday. Likely, may meeting tayo sa Tuesday. And I'll be assigning your next 2 assignments or next 2 homeworks, okay, this coming week. So that's for topic 4 and topic 5. And that would be the coverage of our quiz number 2. Okay? So sige, let's dismiss the class. Thank you,
sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Salamat po.
Okay.
Thank you po.
See you on Tuesday, kung sakali.